Welcome to the second workshop in the course of project development of the project towards open source institutions in Europe. My name is Marko-Luka Zubčić. Just to briefly introduce you to the basic idea of the project that we are currently developing. The project itself is called, as I said, Towards Open Source Institutions in Europe. The key idea is the idea of using a variant of digital participatory system that is currently being used in Taiwan under the name vTaiwan, to develop a variant of such a system for the use in, first of all, for testing in Rijeka's University of Rijeka, and then presumably for testing in some other universities, with the idea of coming up with a system which would be robust enough to fit different contexts and to essentially allow for harvesting of collective intelligence, or in other words, to allow for participatory decision-making in a variety of European institutions. So, as I said, the idea is going to be to test this system on universities, but we're basically attempting to come up, or actually to develop through such tests a system which could be used in other contexts as well. So this workshop, the first workshop, was in July, at the end of July, and it was basically during this workshop we had Andes U from Dutch NGO Network Democracy that are developing such participatory systems and such civic technologies for use in basically in urban governance mostly. And we had Eaglen Whale, the researcher in social technology and political economy from Microsoft, who is one of the people who is basically a founder of Radical Exchange Foundation, who are our sort of primary partners in this project, and who basically developed a series of various mechanisms and tools for stronger utilization of collective intelligence in various contexts. As I said, the first workshop was dedicated to their experiences, their work, the tools that they're developing, and so forth, and to basically establishing certain relations with them as partners and partially even as mentors for us in this process. This workshop is dedicated primarily to the development of the methodology of our project. Essentially, the idea is for this session that we present the methodology to you. We should be joined by Shu Yang Lin from vTaiwan. Unfortunately, he is not here yet, but we hope he will join us at a certain point. But also, we would be extremely interested in this. I would like to say this quite clearly, that we're very interested in your contributions as well. And we would like to hear, so the next step in this session is going to be that Kristina Stojanović-Čehajić, our colleague researcher from Center for Advanced Studies, is going to go through our preliminary methodological draft. And of course, me and Sanja are also going to note and do some notes along the way. But the idea is that after the initial presentation of this preliminary methodological draft, we open up a discussion about the draft, and that you are active participants as much as you have interest and of course, that you're active participants in sort of helping us develop this methodology further, pointing out where do you think the problems will be, which parts do you think we missed out, which parts do you think are going to be, for instance, difficult to reproduce in some other institutional settings and so forth. So I hope that so far so clear, and I would leave the floor to Kristina to present us the methodological draft. Thank you.
Thank you, Marko-Luka, for this nice introduction. So this is the second, let's say, wave cycles of our workshops, which are dedicated to this project proposal development. Some of you may have already heard our presentation from last time, when we already presented our first draft of methodological approach. We have worked on it in the meantime, so it has changed a little bit, and this process of making of actually project creation is iterative. I mean, all the way, and probably, and it will stay open to changes as we go. Okay, I will share now my screen. Okay. All right. So these are some general remarks. Marko-Luka already told something about it. So the background, and like I say, our inspiration is vTaiwan initiative and their innovative research-based technology-assisted public deliberation. And we are using their method as a starting point of this study, and the intention of this project is to not test, reproduce, and modify this model for our particular context. The hypothesis of this study is that this successful application is possible, and that technology-assisted multi-level public deliberation is possible in Europe, and it can bring a needed boost to our democracies. We also assume that this kind of a higher formalization of deliberation process actually is beneficial to decision making in general, and it can ensure higher participation and utilization of collective intelligence. What are some key characteristics of our approach? Well, unlike the usual scientific project proposal, we want to stay very open and modular in the methodology, because this is like a live experiment that affects potentially many actors, and it needs to stay like that. So what we are showing here is our idea of how the process will look like and what methods we are going to use. But we want to keep this kind of a flexibility for to consciously allow methodological versatility throughout the duration of testing. We are also strongly inclined towards multi-method interdisciplinary approach. So this already is a mixture of technology and humanities, but we intend to utilize both quantitative and qualitative data collection, psychological, sociological, linguistic, and philosophical concepts and methods in a controlled way, so that we can in the end make a solid conclusion on what is applicable and what is not, and what is working, and how we can benefit from this kind of multi-method approach. I talked a little bit about modularity. So all of these that I'm talking about are already the elements of vTaiwan model. So it is really experimental and modular, and every time it's a little bit different. We intend to achieve this kind of let's say conclusion on of if the model works and how it works through an iterative process. So there is a repetition that is a part of the process. What is actually the key difference that we have in our model to what vTaiwan has is that actually we are aware that this is a top-down approach. So we are not coming from an existing problem. We are actually going the other way around. We are detecting where the problem might be, and then let's say offer a mechanism for it to be let's say solved in a different way, in an innovative way. Maybe Sanja can say a few words about this kind of difference between top-down and bottom-up approach. Sanja, do we have you there? No, Sanja, yeah. Okay, so because of this difference, we really need to apply different methodology and to structure our process differently to vTaiwan. So yeah, okay. Let's see how Taiwanese model looks like. So there is there are four, let's say, bigger stages: proposal stage, opinion stage, reflection, and legislation stage. I don't know if we should go into more details about it. So first of all, let's say the issue is identified, then there is, let's say, discovery of stakeholders and people who are involved in it. Usually this is like, this is coming from an already existing issue. So this is a bottom-up approach. There is, let's say, an agreement among stakeholders that there will be the issue will be seen through. So the policymaker will actually take into account what this process of deliberation brings to the table and make actually the policy see through it through the end of it. Okay, then the next phase is public deliberation, which can take many forms and utilizes many methods. Some of it is an open invitation for opinion gathering, so people are invited to share their ideas on how they will approach that issue, what are their problems, so on and so forth. Then these kind of comments are curated. Also, there is this production of idea space, which actually shows how these ideas and opinions group using different kind of softwares and tools. After, I mean, there are, let's say, back and forth into public deliberation or inviting people to share their opinions, and then let's say some kind of making sense of it and sharing it again. So it's an iterative process. And finally, there are stages where there is a sit-in where people share their opinions with each other and in the end come to a formalized consensus. Okay, Marko-Luka, can you add, do you want something to add on it?
No, I don't. It's okay at this point. We can go on to our methodology. I'm sorry, I think we lost Kristina. Okay. Just a second. Apologies, we are experiencing technical difficulties. I think Kristina will be back in a second. Yeah. Kristina, we lost you for a second.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, just a second. I want to make my connection more stable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I will continue. I don't know when you lost me.
We can move on to our methodology after vTaiwan.
Okay. Okay. So I don't know. I didn't explain it in too much detail. I mean, you can look at it. It's a very complex process of decision making, which enables a rough consensus and actually is came to very fruitful solutions and policies. All right, this should work now better. Okay. So, as I said, vTaiwan is very specific, and we are aware that our context is pretty different. I mean, we are based in Croatia, but we're also looking for, this project will be based in Europe and is going to address the situation that we have in European countries, which, I mean, we can assume is a little bit different than Taiwanese. There we account in advance for some differences in how this will envelop. As I already mentioned, there is this, the biggest difference is that we are assuming that this will work. So we are going top down and looking for a way for it to make it work actually. So in order to have the project that is scalable and doable, we are limiting ourselves to a context of universities. So we want to find a way for more inclusive decision-making process within the context of our university. Here is what we have so far. I need to share the screen again, right? Okay. Okay, so we have, let's say, a little bit different different stages, different name of the stages. So first of all, we have problem identification. As you can see, this kind of issue choice or problem identification gets a little bit more complex when we are going top down. So we need to make significant effort into identify what is the relevant issue and what is the issue that could generate this kind of motivation to actually go through all of this process, because the process is demanding and it lasts long, and we need people to actually be motivated to participate in it, because this is the whole point of public deliberation and collective intelligence. So first we have problem identification, then we move on to problem solving, and then solution consolidation and monitoring and knowledge transfer. I will go into more details into these first two phases, and then we can open up the discussion for how we could actually frame the third and fourth. First of all, we intend to make a desk research in order to make an overview on what we already have of our existing data in university context. So what are these issues, the problems that are visible to the university that we already know from our studies, from different kinds of research that deals with student problems and these kind of issues. So first of all, we have this kind of an overview. Then after that, we move on to identifying who are unique information people. So who are people who are concerned with these potential issues. So this is the potential list of who may be relevant actors in our context. So those are students, teaching administrative staff, deans, vice deans, rectorate, Ministry of Education. Then we need a good partnership network. So detection of potential partnerships with student body, faculty staff, and decision policy maker is a very important part of this whole process, because they all need to actually participate and to actively participate and to be accountable in the end for those decisions made throughout this whole process. Then what is the relevant issue here? We have identified some key aspects that this issue needs to have. First of all, there is motivation for change, because what we have at the moment is actually very low motivation among student body for participating in, for example, student councils. So students do not see the benefit of being active in solving problems related to university. So we, at the beginning, think about this kind of passivity and what if we are going to encounter the problem of motivation. So the relevant issue must be really motivating for all of the relevant actors that should participate in it. Of course, there is importance of problem scaling, so the problems need to be doable within the project frame, and needs to engage relevant actors of different levels. Okay, this is, let's say, the more interesting research stuff. So we need to have a thorough issue exploration, which utilizes a multi-method approach. We intend to interview students through student organizations, through some informal events such as Student Day Festival. Also, we need to create strong partnership with the Student Council Talk. What is also interesting is what teaching staff has to say. So teaching staff is interesting because they are directly communicating with students, but also they are not necessarily decision-making people and not necessarily involved in decision-making processes. So we need to hear their opinions. As a third stage, we want to quantify all of these issues that we identified in these first two stages. So to actually address the whole student body of University of Rijeka and see if these potential issues are really relevant, and to, let's say, have more solid, to have additional argument into what could be the relevant issue. And then, of course, decision makers and policy makers are hardest to motivate and to bring on board. So we really want to bring some fact-based, let's say, to support our ideas with facts, and to actually bring all that we found out, all those insights from previous stages to them, and then actually show what could be relevant and why a university actually needs to deal with it. What is very important at the end of this phase is this kind of commitment meeting. Commitment meeting is actually a meeting that comprises of all the relevant actors who commit to actually see through an issue. This is an interesting, let's say, a way of focused discussion, but not a typical focus group, where the goal is to inform about the issue, reflect on it from both, let's say, pragmatical but also emotional aspects, and to see how it could be formulated. So this is something where a final issue is being formulated, and where all actors are agreeing that this is going to be worked on. And so after we finish this phase, we proceed to problem solving. For this, as a beginning of problem solving is, of course, formulation of sorry. Okay. So the thing is how we actually spark the discussion, and how we motivate people to participate in opinion sharing, how we're going to gather all these opinions, and how we're going to motivate a lot of people to actually do that. So we want to actually use the partnerships of student organizations and of teaching staff and all of the others actors that we already encountered in the previous phase, and to actually build a very strong network, and then to actually create something which is called like a seeding propositions. In vTaiwan, it's very interesting. They use this form of a hackathon where people produce different kind of contents related to the issue. They use a lot of internet cultures like memes, like different kind of social network forms of communication to spark the discussion. So this kickoff hackathon intends to do exactly that, to actually review what are the relevant facts related to proposed issue, and then to create these kind of initial propositions. And create also dissemination strategies. So how we are actually disseminate all these materials that we have, and how we collect the data. Then there is a phase of public deliberation. So there are options in which we can proceed. We can collect raw textual data with open-ended, non-curated comments, which are then analyzed, or there is also potential to use quantitative surveys, or those two in combination. what actually is a very interesting part here is this kind of AI-assisted analysis, something which vTaiwan is using. They use Polis. They're an open source tool for actually analyzing a lot of qualitative textual data and creating some kind of making sense of this kind of raw data, creating some idea maps out of it. So this is something which we find very interesting, and we are looking into partnerships related to this part of the process. So the idea is to actually show the people how where they are placed on this kind of an idea map, and how does it relate to where are they, for example, in comparison to their friends or neighbors or colleagues. So this is one very interesting part of the process, which showed to be very interesting to people involved, and yeah, and showing actually people that where they might be, let's say, very different on the idea space from their close friends. That's an interesting insight for them. But then this is not the last part of the process. So after this kind of idea space is generated, then these ideas get debundled into, let's say, smaller propositions, which are then again reflected upon. So instead of, let's say, saying, okay, instead of being on one part of ideology or the other, one part of the spectrum or the other, by debundling the idea space, people actually get to this kind of a rough consensus thing, and that means that they actually realize that they agree about many small propositions, even though they belong to different kind of ideology spectrum. This is the innovative part also of this process, actually, that it is the opposite of how politics work right now. So they do not polarize, they do the opposite. So yeah, the consensus is rough, so this is not the last part of the process. We do not have, let's say, the other phases developed in such a detail, but after this phase is finished, then there is the phase of solution consolidation, when then again, like we had in a commitment meeting, all the relevant actors sit together and reflect upon what rough consensus has brought as a potential solution. So then there is a process of creation of public policy and its execution. And finally, potentially monitoring and knowledge transfer. So, yeah, that was all so far. I hope it was clear enough, and if you have questions, you feel free to ask. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristina. Yeah, so the process as we have developed it until now, so far, is, as you can see, complex, and essentially it involves both finding ways how to get information from people in this sort of basic sort of epistemological sense, in the sense of what do they know about the problem and about the potential solutions, but also it has this strong underlying dynamic of creating trust, so to speak, you know, to create some kind of partnerships with each actor in the process, from the students to the sort of top management of the institution, so that, you know, at each point there is a need for each of the actors within the process to see that this process is something that is in their interest or in their sort of to their benefit, so to speak. So in this sense, the sort of development of trust is equally sort of relevant for the process to work, as is, I mean, it's sort of development of trust sort of facilitates some epistemic aspects of the process, basically. It allows for better sort of information and for better information flow to take place, for the better motivation. And again, when it comes to trust from the position of sort of top management, which should at the commitment meeting sort of commit to this idea that the problem was identified and that they will follow the results of the process in implementing, actually executing the policy that is the result of the process. This sort of commitment meeting moment of commitment of the top management is also something that we believe has a strong, and this is something from the experiences of vTaiwan as well, that this is something that is very motivational for other actors to actually participate in the process, when they know that their participation is not just sort of symbolic gesture, but is something that is going to result with something tangible, with some real policy proposals that the top management has committed to actually implementing. So this sort of development of trust, which creates more participation, as well as, and then in the end creates sort of better intelligence, so to speak, better some kind of knowledge transfer and information flow, is something that has to be sort of very carefully designed in the process, so that we don't lose anybody along the way, and so that we don't sort of lose anybody's trust along the way. So the next, I would like to see if anybody has some from the audience, if perhaps somebody has some questions about the whole project, about the methodology, but also if somebody has detected some particular aspects of the methodology that are that they find problematic or particularly challenging or wrong or so forth. So if anybody from the audience has some particular questions. Yes. Hello.
So it's me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello.
This is very interesting,
Professor.
but how is that you really maintain transparency regarding trust? I mean, how are we, people that participate, are going to try, you know, believe in it? How is it transparent that we know that things happen in a democratic way? Do you have monitors? Who's doing what there?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great question. Kristina? Yes.
Yeah, well, thank you for that question. That's a very important question. So I can say how things are done. For example, in vTaiwan, and in methodology of network democracy that that are potentially our partners. All the way, the whole process is being recorded and registered and uploaded. So every part of it is open. So the content of the exchange is completely open. These meetings are also open to the public. So the public can actually comment and interrupt and react during the process of decision making all the way. not only that, but there is also transparency in terms of how the project is done, which is not very usual. So there are records on what is the process, the way of working, and this is also something which is transparent and published throughout the process. So, but yeah, this is something like how our potential partners are doing it. But yes, if some additional monitoring could be done, I think that's a great idea.
Well, I think that people like me or everyone that is busy doing some particular project won't have the time to go and look individually at all these records to see how this, how these data are bundled in a way that we arrive to a democratic process, really. And so I wonder whether there are ways to have monitors representing by, democratic process, representing people involved, like different students, groups, etc., whatever, faculty, that will do the monitoring, so that instead of having 200 people being free to do whatever, you would have 3 people or 4 from each group, say, or interest, and doing that job in a way. Because I see that in processes that are not the same as what you are showing, but that intend to do the same thing in universities, you end up wondering how things end up being the way they are, because yes, you can spend 1 year going over the data to see how you arrive at conclusions, but nobody's going to do that because you have to teach and do other stuff.
Thank you. That's a very valuable insight. So yeah, we will think about how to ensure that not only the data is shared, but it's actually easy to follow. Let's say we can upload everything, but then make like a huge amount of data that is unreadable. So, but the whole idea is that actually there is not one instance that is doing the project, but there are many partners which are involved. So we are, let's say, moderators of the process, and we have some expertise in the research, but we are not the ones who are making decisions. So we are just connecting all these other actors and let them also build trust among each other.
I have a follow-up question.
Yes.
Okay.
Sanja wanted to say something. Did you want to answer, Sanja? Sorry.
Maybe we can collect a few remarks on this aspect of trust, because I wanted to propose to all of us actually a kind of a trust formula that is that consists of credibility and openness to vulnerable questions. So it's kind of a balance that we need in building up trust. We firstly need to get rid of the confirmation biases, among other biases, but and then again also something related to expertise and structuring the different expertises so that we can become credible with what we are proposing. Instead of only monitoring and personalizing those who are controlling what is trustful or not, we can proceed also, and this is why we need technologies as well, we can proceed in filtering. Now I'm using even the language of technologies, filtering material, rough material or data that can be trustful. Thanks.
I have a follow-up question. Of course, the target of this project are the people who are going to do the work and, let's say, answer the students in a way. Is that right? So do students in your university have committed themselves? Do you think that they follow what you are doing? Do they have the background to grasp the interesting things that you are proposing?
We are working on that. Yeah.
Well, they don't necessarily at this point. So the idea is that we don't, as far as I think at least, that the idea is that we don't we cannot really begin with student body that is already motivated. The great challenge here, and probably the most interesting part of this, is also to have the system that is designed in such a way that it can gather as much student input as possible. So in this sense, we don't actually need them to be already sort of very motivated, because in this sense, they wouldn't need this system. That's sort of my thinking.
Do you maybe have something to propose to us of how we should address this question?
Well, as usual, as a teacher, you always know that there is a partnership that you have with your students. If your students don't trust you, obviously, whatever you can tell them comes from one orifice on the right to the other on the left. So I find your project very well designed and let's say detailed and thorough. The issue is who is the audience, who are in the audience willing to follow.
Yes, I agree. But this is in a way, this is one of the sort of first objectives of the project, to sort of find to find protocols which will be able to gather student input in some way, so that we don't have to rely on some sort of already existing kind of ethos in the student body, because we have some protocols which will sort of already allow for the participation without there needing to be some kind of ethos of participation. But I agree. I mean, this is the primary problem of the project. Professor Černý?
Thank you very much. Well, my question or comment was actually very close to what Anna and Carlos have just been saying. But just to say thank you very much for the presentation, really interesting. Really great to see something where you're really putting it into practice. Often we talk about interdisciplinary approaches at a very theoretical level. So it's I'm really grateful that you're trying to work out how do we actually do this rather than just talking about doing it. So that's brilliant. But the question I have is being a bit skeptical. Maybe at the moment, as we all know, we've got huge decision-making processes going on at the university, but not just at our university. I expect all about how we're going to now go on with life in these virus times. And it's really interesting to me to hear about this commitment of the person who's actually going to, the policy implementer. In fact, your research in the ideal world would be the policy maker, the implementer, so kind of changing the role. And again, it very links with Anna's comment and what Carlos has just said about the transparency and trust, in a sense, and what Sanja said. How can we, if in the entire research process, especially for the students, because the university is having their hierarchy, there's quite a strict hierarchical relations often, are almost at the beginning of the research, not promised, but it's suggested that what comes out, okay, they're just one stakeholder, will be implemented. What happens if the policy implementer at the end decides that actually they don't quite like what the research, because then the whole not then thing just collapse like a pack of cards? How, horrible question, obviously I don't think you've got the answer. How can we be sure the policy implementer, and I use that word really, implementer, because the policy is made from your research, how in your work can we ensure that the policy implementer is going to implement the findings? Because that's the critical moment, it seems.
Yeah, it is. It is. We already talked to the people who went through this kind of a process, and what the worst thing that could happen is that the policy is not implemented. That is the worst thing to the whole process, and actually can erode the trust in democratic process even more. So it's a huge risk.
Yeah.
So what is done in order to prevent this, into very early on have a commitment, very clear, I mean, maybe in this case even written commitment to seeing through the policy. I mean, in our context, the decision makers are rectorate, or deans or vice deans, whoever might be actually the key actor there. But we really need to have all of them sit together at this kind of a commitment meeting, where this, I mean, someone needs to be held accountable for seeing through the policy implementation. So at least we will have like a recording of, you said that you will do that. I mean, this is the most that we can do. This is obviously, I mean, we cannot prevent this from happening completely, but this is like a step that is, accountability is a huge part of this process. It's crucial here. And also I would because you were commenting before that about how we're going to find out, how we're going to actually reach this kind of a insight, in find actually an issue that is sufficiently motivated to students, and how we're going to approach that. We were talking actually about you and cooperating with your students as well, students of culturology. So this is where we see, for example, anthropological methods as most fitting, actually, as let's say softest, as the most approaching, like something that we could use actually. We could invite students as researchers, as part of our research team, actually to help us in different stages of this kind of issue exploration, and in order to really get to what is invisible as a student problem. So we already know, I mean, through student satisfaction surveys and this kind of a visible documentation, we already know some things, but there are things that we don't. So
yeah, well, that would be brilliant. I'm sure ours would be willing. I quite remember the first day of semester is, but starts our research methodology course, so you've got about a month. And then but yeah, definitely
this is potentially useful to the students, because they can gain some research experience, but also very important to our project team, because we believe that this kind of the trust in this generation is better established among the peers. So, I mean, we can talk about it, but these are some ideas that we're having.
Yeah, because it seems to me that it's the trust of the students. Unfortunately, often they are, in terms of hierarchies, perhaps at the lower end. So it's their trust which will be shattered if it doesn't happen, which is particularly damaging in that sense, because then it's just, oh, here we go again kind of approach. So it's really important that, so maybe, I don't know, just now as we're talking is, I don't know what topics you're thinking but maybe just as a sort of pilot is that it's almost a not too challenging policy to implement. So it's a softer issue. So perhaps not just to see how it works.
Definitely. Yes, it needs to be. This is what we were thinking about. That this is what we think when we say that the scalability of the issue. So we need to actually be really, really careful about that. So that is doable and that is implementable, that it's not too big of a bite, because if it fails, there is a big risk of losing trust in institution and in democratic process, which it's very bad. We already have that. This is what we are doing this as a corrective. This whole process should be a corrective to this kind of a lost trust, and which results in passivity, which we see not only among our students, but at least in Croatia, people are being more and more passive in terms of political life.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. But I just wanted to sort of just add to what Kristina said. This the idea is that sort of, as Kristina was saying, that we would in the beginning that when it comes to sort of conversations with students, we would like to have student researchers also involved, as she was just saying, to sort of go into the student life and join certain already established student events in some informal settings and so forth. So basically what I'm getting at is that each sort of actor in the university, the idea is that we tailor the procedure of getting information from each actor depending on that actor. So in this sense, they wouldn't be treated by the same sort of tools, so to speak, but each actor would have their own sort of specific way of getting information from them. And this is something also related to Professor Stojanović-Čehajić's question about students, in the sense that this initial communication with students would actually be developed in such a way that it's sort of less formal and in this sense more, so to speak, natural for them to share information, as opposed to the, for instance, situation in which they're invited to a focus group in which with, I don't know, their teachers and so forth, in which they would be much less inclined to share certain kinds of information. So we're trying to sort of design these processes so that they fit each actor sufficiently that we get the best info from them, actually. Oh, sure. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi. Nice to meet you. Hello. We already started some hour ago, so we already sort of represented the methodology and are at the moment. Sorry, I missed it. So at this point, we're already discussing some aspects of the methodology that we are currently developing.
Okay.
So it's very nice.
Sure. Thanks for inviting me. But I'll just join along and keep your discussion. I'll see if I can contribute anything.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that we could even send you once we have the draft, maybe we could send it to you afterwards, so that we sort of elicit some of your comments on the draft itself.
Okay.
And not to sort of, because we already presented it now, so it would be sort of.
It's already too late. Okay, so should I just leave?
No.
Actually, we can bring you into the heart of the problem.
Yes.
Because we were discussing the question of trust. How do you develop trust in the process of getting all this together, and quadratic voting and the process as such through different stages? Can you tell us from your example,
Sure.
what are your impressions, and what was it that you came to at the end of implementing the vTaiwan?
Yeah. Okay. So how's the understanding of all the participants over here around vTaiwan? Have you like all get a rough understanding already? So I just assume.
You can give us a short overview on.
Yeah. Sure.
What is the background of the idea?
Okay, so just quickly introducing vTaiwan. It's an open consultation process for regulatory reform. So basically to change regulations. Although like I'm not from academic background, so what I understand is very much like a volunteer or contributor's point of view. But vTaiwan is kind of for me a chance, a space and time for anyone in Taiwan to participate and have a say to if they want to change regulation. So a little bit of background. It started in 2012, I think in 2014 after the Sunflower Movement. Started after a hackathon. One of the ministers in Taiwan proposed to have this platform, and the Civitech community in Taiwan called GovZero started the platform. And after that, several cases got passed and sent the draft bill to Parliament, and about 70% to 80% of the cases got through the Parliament and either get a reply of yes, we go for this change of regulation, or no, we reject because of these and such reasons. So in the end, I think it's anyway a new channel to do regulatory reform. So in terms of building trust, it's a very, very difficult question, I think, very difficult to facilitate the people and place and the timing in the right place. So in my experience, I've been in vTaiwan since 2016. So that's 4 years after vTaiwan started. When I joined vTaiwan, it was only me and Audrey, because it's always organic community. So sometimes we have 40 people all together join a weekly hackathon. Sometimes we only have 2 people, 3 people, and just try to maintain the platform. So of course we kind of bump into challenges like we don't have enough people to really feel like we can represent the public or mini public. But there's also times there are too many people having too many different opinions, and that is even harder to build the trust. So I'm not sure if I can give a good answer, but one thing me and Audrey always talked about is the government or the process. If we're building something and we want people to participate, we need to trust the participants first so they can trust us back later. So it's always kind of our responsibility to bring this regularity into process. So what I see, because I think that is a good thing to say, but it's also kind of cliche to say we have always trust people first and people can trust us back. But what I see for the thing we try to do is actually build a regularity into the process. So for example, if we say we're gonna run weekly hackathons every week, every Wednesday night, then we do that even there's no people coming to us. We just do that. And if we say it's a online offline space, if it's like it's a we do run hackathons every Wednesday, and we bring it online. So we do make it online every time when we start the hackathon or meeting, you can say. And then that kind of regularity starts to bring people into the process. Yeah, there's another point. The last point I think to make is the 3 key elements, I think, to make the process sustainable or alive is either the process has to be there, and the technology has to be there, and the timing has to be there. So the process meaning how is the journey of one case starting to live on the vTaiwan platform until the end? What people should do to kind of support the case. Say, for example, if there's a case to discuss online bullying, how does a case started to launch on the vTaiwan platform until it becomes a draft bill and sent to the parliament, and that's the end of our process? Or do we still wait for reply from the parliament until we get an answer? Maybe that's the end of the process. So the process has to be clear, and it can be changed, but the way to change the process should be also very clear. So people will have this ownership of the process also, to participate either in forming the process or to propose cases to vTaiwan. So the process has to be there. So that's the first point. And the second point is the technology. So the technology we use, I know a lot of platform face issues like it's hard to maintain the platform, and it's difficult to find people to maintain the platform. So the technology we use is all the time whoever can contribute to, how do I say that? Contribute to maintain the platform. So for example, if we get one engineer who is good at writing Vue.js, then we just use Vue.js. If we get another month, the Vue.js engineer got busy and do something else. So we maybe got another person want to contribute to a process, but he's more better at another JavaScript framework. Then we will change everything just for the maintenance for it. So the way we maintain a platform is always changing different kind of technology, and when people have to get busy on something else, they can always do so. We don't kind of lose our access to maintain the system. We just try to welcome anyone who can help us to do it. And there's always a plan B to do everything, maybe just by using current available technologies, like just maybe just using Zoom, for example, and put everything on pen and paper, for example. There's always a plan B. So there's no way to disrupt the process because of the lack of maintenance of the technology or system. So the third point, I think, is the timing. And timing has to be right, and timing a lot of times connect with pressure from the society. So the cases on vTaiwan, if we launch a case like online bullying, or a case like selling liquors online, or a case like maybe when Uber came to Taiwan, we need to form regulation. So all kinds of different topics. It has to come with the right timing also. Timing comes with pressure. So when people are really feeling they need some change, feel a need of some change. And that's the timing, good timing to draw people's attention. But if sometimes the pressure is not strong enough, it becomes our responsibility to push the case and to draw public's attention, and that becomes too much of a burden, then we wouldn't go for it. So I think the timing really comes with whoever feels the most pain will try the hardest to launch the case also. So yeah, so that's what I meant about the timing. And when things are going well, when you get a few successful examples, people start to see, the late adopters start to see the value of it and start to come along and bring in new ideas. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just out of curious, can I ask, this from the email, it's really hard to know who are the participants over here, and can you let me? let me understand a little bit background of the people who are talking to my murmuring now.
Sorry. My name is Marko-Luka, and Kristina, Stojanović-Čehajić, and Sanja, Bojanić are my colleagues at Center for Advanced Studies at University of Rijeka. And the idea is, as we were emailing, the idea of our project is basically to develop a participatory system which would work on the test case of University of Rijeka, first of all, but then we would like to sort of find ways for such a system to work on some other universities as well in Europe, with the idea of general sort of inclusion of such systems into European institutions. So this is a sort of a the most far away goal. The sort of primary goal at this point of this project is to sort of develop a system which would which is a variant of vTaiwan system, in the sense that vTaiwan basically sort of gives us some initial knowledge of how to develop such a thing, and then to test it at University of Rijeka. And we were just we just went through the sort of first this draft of the system, which would essentially involve, in our case, also the sort of problem identification. So as you were saying, that there is vTaiwan was mostly, if I correctly understood you, that mostly there was the issue was something that was already generated from the society, like as you said, the cyberbullying was already something that there was a social pressure to address in some sense.
Yes,
right?
yes, yeah, yeah. So yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, maybe we could share, let's say, this overall draft of our the methodology that we propose. This is, let's say, we started from your model, and when we build upon it, maybe we can show you only that slide and just to repeat it a little bit. But
yeah, it's not a repetition, because whenever you say it again, it's maybe different, and maybe it's clear, maybe it's not clear. But I wanted to ask, because it seems it's a crucial point, this either bottom-up or top-down strategy, if we are now speaking in strategies, to just show you the path, and then that you can comment on it, and that you can, from the spot, just identify maybe contradictions or things that are opposite to your practice. Because when you said it, when you briefly exposed it, it was so clear that the motivation and the thing to move on and get rid of the passivity of people in general is to work steadily and dynamically on their attention.
Yeah,
this is what I would. It was like passing on. You said it's a process, and the process is actually technology and the timing. And what is in the technology and what is in the timing, that there are like they can be changed, they can be transformed, but on the run. Absolutely, like a flux, no stop. If you stop, if your activity stops, then no way that can that you can build trust in those who are going to participate in the process. So it's the most of the activity is on you. You are the agent. You're the main agency, and you're giving some kind of in the process. You're giving this firstly like kind of a simulacrum of agency to others. They're like getting in.
Yeah.
And then when they are in the process for a certain period of time, they can see, okay, so I'm attentive to what is happening, what is going on, and I'm going to participate. So it's so tiny moment of how to move on and how to start the participatory element. It's microscopic. I really recognize it as a macroscopic in what you described. So please, if you can just comment on what Kristina will share, because our perspective, we are the university, it's an institution, and our perspective is by definition like top-down. And we wanted to leverage this top-down perspective and like contaminate it with some of your practices and try to move it on, like try to find those bottom-up elements and contaminate our students with this participatory activity. Kristina, can you just go through the scheme so that we can clear it up once again?
Thank you.
Kristina, you need to unmute.
Okay, can you see my screen right now?
Yes.
Okay, so you already know your model, so I do not have to show it here, although it came as an inspiration. This is what we started from. So, and we also reshaped and renamed these kind of phases. So as Sanja said, with the key difference between what you are doing and what we are having here is that this is basically something that is coming top down. I mean, it has an intention to streamline the communication in future, to make this kind of what you explained as a channel for future problem solving and decision making. But right now, it is coming from it is top down approach. So we are looking for an issue that could be motivating enough and doable enough in our context. This is why we are taking a context of university so that we can actually create something that is relevant and doable over the scope of a project which could last for a couple of years for start. So as you can see, first you have issue choice, which is not so long, but here we have this kind of a problem identification, which will take a bit more time to actually do. We are starting with desk research, so overviewing of existing data about student issues, because it's a university context. Then we are identifying who are unique information people, who are the people who are concerned about this issue, or who are the relevant actors in the context of university. Then we define what could be the relevant issue in our context, and then we are creating partnership networks. So in the university, those actors are most likely, I mean, students definitely are relevant actors. They're on the receiving end of any kind of decisions that is done in the university. So students are student body is one part of one actor that we're concerned or that we're taking into account. There is also teaching staff, administrative staff, and then there is this management staff or decision-making people and policy-making people, which are then the rectorate of the university. So if we have these kind of actors, this relevant issue should actually be relevant to most of them. I mean, at least to the students and to teaching and decision-making staff. In issue exploration, we are using a multi-method research into actually figuring out what could be that issue that we could explore. So we are approaching students through students' organizations, through student council, and through some informal events in which students are gathered, like student festivals and so on and so forth. So this is where we intend to actually use anthropological methodology into actually finding out what is that unspoken problem problems that students have that are not visible to the university. We are also interviewing teaching staff because they are in close contact with students and yet not necessarily decision makers. And we are also interviewing decision makers. We're also intending to have here some kind of a quantitative survey. I mean, somewhere in this process when we gather ideas through qualitative research. So as you see, we intend to do a very thorough research into what could be actually pushed. Let's say if there is no an urgent issue that is naturally coming up, we want to see if there is something that we could draw attention to. So this is like the biggest challenge of our process, and this is how we are planning to address it. Then in the problem-solving phase, we are more or less looking into your methodology, into public deliberation and opinion gathering. Hackathon as a very interesting event that could, for start, serve as a kickoff to problem-solving. Also using quadratic voting in order to get to a rough consensus. And then again, I mean, there is solution consolidation part of the process when there is again this kind of a meeting of relevant actors who reflect on a rough consensus and come together to some kind of a policy or solution to the problem that is identified. Yeah, I would like to hear your comments. I mean, the rest of the process is very similar to what you are doing. I mean, we are, of course, staying very open to actually change this kind of a structure if we see that something is working or not working. So this project proposal is modular and methodologically open. So we're not sure if this is how it will look like in the end, but let's say this is the main idea.
Yeah. I really appreciate this overview, and it does give a lot more clarity for me to understand what you're trying to achieve. I think this is a very, very good start. There's nothing really to be picky about. I agree with what you mentioned about the problem identification is probably the most challenging part for now, because what I understand from you is you're trying to create this platform from a very top-down, maybe so far as top-down approach, meaning you as a maybe boarding members, staffs in the school, trying to set up this platform and hoping the students would participate, which is sometimes not the case. So that will be a tricky starting point, which is how to find out those problems. And here I think I can share one example when we try to bring vTaiwan to the government. That was very difficult, challenging also from the beginning, when we try to bring this very organic process and we want to bring this to the government and hope this process will become a bit more widespread so that all the citizens can know about this platform and also bring their opinions to the platform. And that time we kind of identified the key actor for the start of this platform is to find out public servants who are very passionate. So most of the public servant ranking in Taiwan has 14 different ranks from 1 to 14. And we try to ask all the 32 different departments in the central government to give us 1 to 3 what we called really hot-blooded public servants who want to make a change. So they did give us some people, but actually most of them are assigned. So the problem is how to find those really eager public servants. But anyway, we gather maybe 70 of the public servants, and we kind of set up the rule, which is we ask them to give us 1 problem every month. So in the parallel scenario, maybe is in your case is maybe the student body or the directory boarding members. If there's a requirement somehow, although it's a hard start, we did that in Taiwan's government. We asked all the public servants, we call them participation officers, to bring us 1 problem every month. But what I saw in the beginning is people start to bring very unnecessary problems. So maybe the problem they're already solving, which is natural, because if you are a if you are a participation officer, your choice, you have to think in their shoes. Your choice will be, there's a new platform trying to do something, but I don't know what it's gonna become. So I would just bring maybe something I'm already solving and see what's gonna happen there. So it's very normal, very natural. They bring the things they're already trying to solve, the policy they're already drafting, the problems probably they know the solution already, and just to test out the process from the beginning. Until there's 1 problem after maybe 6-7 months. So you will expect that period of time when people probably distrust your platform because you're new and still thinking, I'm not sure what outcome is gonna become, and I'm not sure if we have a solid solution. Would the top authorities really implement our solution? That's also gonna set people's trust to you in the beginning. If you're really sure you're going to implement their solution, then you have to do it from the beginning and regularly, so that 1 real problem come to you, they will know you will do their solution. And so until maybe 6-7 months, there's 1 problem about tax reporting system in Taiwan. They want to redesign, and that was more contradictory because it's more like cross-ministerial problem, and only the Ministry of Finance couldn't solve it. It has to get collaboration from other ministries as well. And that's the time when few designers in the society are really angry about the interface. It's too ugly and too hard to understand and so on. And there's like a pressure to need a change. So that time when the pressure is right, our platform had the right kind of social pressure from the society. Designers were loud enough to request a change of the interface. And the timing was right because the funding were there already from the Ministry of Finance to do the reform. And all we have to do is make the process really open, really transparent, and let people see how we really include all stakeholders to discuss about the process. Yeah, so one thing I think I can point out in this process is the transparency. I'm not sure if that can be true for all the platforms, but what I can see, what we benefit from transparency is when we try to open the process more and more, people start to trust us back more and more also. Of course, in the beginning, you don't have to be transparent about everything, but at least there's some touch points. For example, some like results, staggery results of each process will be quite a good starting. When there are more stakeholders maybe in the meetings, for example, sometimes we run workshops for all stakeholders, and we do like live streaming the entire meeting, so people can see all the process. And you can be really radical about the transparency you try to build into the process. Yeah, I think that's what I can see. But overall, I think this is a very, very similar process to vTaiwan. What I can see is also the same as you were mentioning. It's very similar to what we are implementing right now. What I don't see, and what maybe we try to do when we move to the government, is maybe we try to establish a policy. Do you say policy? A regulation for the existence of the process. So regulation of requiring the government has to give answer to whatever case launched on this platform. This is probably why I don't see still, because this is probably a start of the draft, but you have to have legitimacy in the end when things are, because I'm not sure, because maybe I'm from the government practice, so everything in government will be based on legitimacy, regulations. People have to follow the laws and regulations. So for example, public servants, if you don't have regulation, they don't have to participate. But if you have, then they will be more willing to do it. But in a school, I think maybe there's some ways you can make it more formal so people can trust the systems, in the long run.
Yeah, this is what we have thought about and what we are incorporating in this commitment meeting. But yeah, this is where we would like to ensure this accountability of decision making. But it's an interesting it's an important remark that maybe it should be even more formalized, so that they really, like, there is a even written commitment to see through the solution that is. Was that something that you were talking about? Did they understand it?
Yeah. It's to make it more accountable.
Maybe it's not visible all on this, but we find that very important, and we would like to address that issue.
Mm-hmm. And how do you plan to let the students know about this platform?
What we our idea is to actually make partnership with relevant student organizations. That is the start. That is one start. So there are many student organizations. Some are like faculty based, and some are university based. They have different levels. So we want to actually come to their meetings and talk about the platform, and try to find there some people who are more eager, more motivated, because we assume that people who are already voluntarily being engaged in some kind of student organizations have this kind of motivation for making some change to, so this is something, so student organizations, student body, and one of the ideas that we talked about previously is also to involve some of the students in our research team. So to use some of the students of humanity, to give the opportunity to some students of humanities to actually be part of our research team, and to also involve them this way. So yeah, these are some preliminary ideas that we have so far.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
Yeah, and yeah, I actually have one very important question for you, because we saw that you are using Polis as a tool for analyzing textual, textual data, opinion that people are sharing. So we were actually wondering how much is it sensitive to the language? So how does it need, and how much extra time does it need to actually for algorithm to be adapted to a specific language?
Zero. Yeah, it doesn't. It's not sensitive to. Go ahead, use it. It's definitely not sensitive to any language. It doesn't analyze the text per se. It's, if I can explain the algorithm a bit, it's very similar to Netflix. It's an algorithm called principal component analysis.
All right.
You can find it on Wikipedia and know a little bit about the algorithm. Yeah, but it's zero sensitive to the language. It works by voting. So people who understand the language of the opinion will vote for yes, no, or I don't know. Like, I agree, I don't agree, or I don't know what to say about this opinion. So it's only 3 dimensions on the voting.
Yeah, but I have a question. So, but this then the researcher needs to curate actually these open-ended answers that are shared by people. If deliberation is done that way, that you actually leave people, let people leave comments and not answer some kind of poll or.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Polis is very useful in the in kind of sensing the interests to the problem also. So are people interested enough, or people having enough understanding or dimensions around a certain topic? Say maybe you launch 3 Polis surveys. Let's call it survey now, or Polis conversations. Maybe one is about a public institution, public say park in a school. Another one is more about students' benefits. Another one is more about maybe a particular course. Maybe the students have different levels of understanding around certain topic, and you can sense which topic is more discussed already among the students.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good way to get a feeling around the topic. But I would doubt if it's a good way to come with a really solid solution. So that's why it's always good to bring Polis surveys results to a further, like, this solution consolidation stage. That would be a good timing to use Polis.
Okay. So we, if it's a principal component analysis and it's not, we understood it a bit differently, but okay.
Sorry. If you know the algorithm,
it's more straightforward then.
Yeah. Okay. It's so good you just not understand the algorithm. When I talk to people, I just say the name and no one really understand anything.
Sure. There are other ways of analyzing qualitative data, like natural language processing, sentiment analysis, and so. But these are some other tools. Not Polis doesn't utilize it, as far as I understood you.
No.
Yeah.
Polis only use PCA. And then project to the interface. It has its API, so we're thinking to project to a 3D space so people can kind of play around the data, but it doesn't analyze the text. But you can, if it's open source, so you can also make a change of it if you want to, say, increase the level of voting. Say, not only agree, disagree, or pass. You can maybe use 10 different kinds of emojis as their voting buttons. Then you can also change that.
Cool, thank you. This is very important clarification for us.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe I have a question also. Who's about the facilitators of the platform? What do you imagine who's gonna keep this platform running in the beginning or in the long run? Yeah.
That's a difficult question. At the beginning, it's going to be, the idea is, first of all, us as the research team, and then probably with some other partners. But at the university, probably sort of first of us, and then we would expand it to this student, both the student council, then some students as researchers at certain points. Then we would include them in this sort of hackathon, in which we would both sort of generate some seed propositions to go into the public deliberation, but also the hackathon should also generate, again inspired by vTaiwan, should generate some kind of sort of materials like memes and so forth. I mean, something that would actually be used to sort of disseminate this conversation throughout the student body and so forth. So in this sense, at this point, we're thinking about relying a lot on these student structures on one hand. On the other hand, as you were saying, with regards to this final implementation, it would be great it appears necessary to have a strong support from sort of university staff, and especially from the sort of top management of the university, and probably even some kind of, as you were just saying, some kind of formalized even agreement that the results of the process will be implemented in the faculty. So in this sense, it's difficult to say. Sort of, we would be sort of facilitators at this stage during this project. We would be the ones probably who are the sort of key facilitators. But then part of the project would also be sort of investigating how can it become a part of the university. So how can we, delegate this facilitation to somebody who is at the university, whether it's student council at certain points of the process, or whether it's some kind of management at some levels of university management at some other points of the process. So this is something that is still being sort of examined on our part. It's not sort of super clear how it is going to be done.
Yeah, always good to start with a little bit of uncertainty. I think it's very exciting.
Oh, sorry. It's better to start with
a little bit of uncertainty. I think it's really good to kind of leave some, like drawing, right? It's good to leave some white space so you can grow a bit later.
Perfect.
May
Hey.
May I bring the elephant in the room?
Yeah.
How is this thing going to be funded, or who is funding this process? Because the participating people have their own jobs, and if I know something about that, everyone is too busy. So who is funding this to identify who are going to be the leaders and who are going to be the followers, and how each of them will be part of the program or the platform, as you call it?
Well, at this point, the idea is to seek funding from the call by Volkswagen Stiftung Foundation. So at this point, we're in the phase of developing this project as basically fundamentally a research project, in the sense that we would research the system and how we could develop it so that it fits the university. So in this sense, this would be sort of this sort of first stage would be project-based, and after that, of course, it's also a question: how does something like this stay in the part of the institution? How does it stick in the institutional life? I don't know. This is not something that we have an answer to.
Could you perhaps Shu Yang could answer the question? How is this project funded in Taiwan?
Sure. I think that's a very good question. Like I probably mentioned in the beginning, the idea came from one of the ministers who came to our hackathon and said, oh, maybe we should have a platform like this. So we were lucky enough to get a very top-down authority. And then we got some, what I know is we got some fundings also from the government to be a research project as well. So let's start, a very minimum funding from the beginning. But I would say, yeah, in the beginning, it's also before the minister came to our hackathon, this idea has been under discussion for a while.
By who?
But by the civic tech community people. So in Taiwan, there's a lot of people joining monthly events, and then they would try to help on social issues in any formation. Most of them are engineers and just trying to help out the government. So the net community was started by one of the engineers in 2002. So that has been running for several years until vTaiwan started to form in shape. And that's GovZero Civic Tech Communities Hackathon runs every other month. And it has different people participating also, including public servants sometimes, including international journalists, to know how we curate the hackathons every 2 months. And that was funded by donations in the beginning. Actually, in the first donation was when those engineers participated in the hackathon from Yahoo, and they got probably $2,000 as a reward. And then they used that $2,000 as a start of the hackathon, because all the expenses is just about buying foods, pizza and Coke to support the event, and people will come for food, and you start to have some results and build a website. That's the start. So in the beginning, you actually don't need much. You just have people trying to come and eat food. And in Taiwan, people are very people come together because of there's some free food. Engineers
everywhere.
Taiwan, yeah, yeah. I would say, yeah, engineers in Taiwan specifically like pizzas and soda drinks. So that was very easy from the start. So you attract, probably find a free space to borrow, and then just put food inside. People will come, and that's the start until it runs for several years. Become more and more famous of some creative projects, like you probably know about forking the government. So they have this meme say, we want to fork the government, and a lot of people come to us say, what are you doing about forking the government? And then we say, you know how to make website, and let's go to one of the websites from the government and say, let's just fork it, let's copy everything, and say we open a website from Ministry of Education. There's a dictionary website, but all the dictionary is kind of arrows inside, a lot of arrows in that weird public website. So why don't we make everything again and do it better? And then we open source our code so the government can merge it back. So that becomes the whole forking the government movement. We fork all the websites from the government, and then the government can merge it back. And we built the URL called G0V instead of GOV. So we told the government, say, okay, everything you found on G0V domain, you can merge it back. So when some of the government institutions like Budget Taipei or Council Taipei, they merge some of our code back, and that becomes quite a news, and that drew a lot more attention, and more people join the community in the end. And that's also why that minister, particularly Minister of Cyberspace in 2014, came to our hackathon and say, okay, you're just probably hi, a bunch of coders. I know you're very good at making platforms. So what the minister was really needing is a platform for reforming regulatory. But although like a lot of people have been talking about this in GovZero hackathons, but we couldn't find the right leverage. So when the minister came to us, it's just like, how do you say, a rabbit in a cage. We just caught her and caught the idea and said, oh, you said so, and then we're gonna make it for you. So in 2 weeks, we made a prototype, and she saw people are able to make things in 2 weeks, although it's just a very crafty page. Looks very ugly, but it works. But you know, like also the essence of government web pages, like it doesn't need to be beautiful, but anyway, so it's functional. So we start from something functional, they can use it, and when they realize they get even more opinions from the normal or classical surveys they would do normally, they found, okay, this new 2 weeks made page is even more valuable. It gets more opinions, and then they can use these opinions to change regulation and so on. So that's how it got started. So, but we did get funding in the beginning. But when we got funding, we also cleared that it's a government fund, because research institution fund, the community-run platform. So it's not how do you say, it's not manipulated by the authority, but the authority will fund the platform. But we do write reports, for example, back to the research institution every season, I think, every season. But all the money goes into the food, the pizza and Coke, and nothing more.
Excuse me. So what you are saying is that every participant is volunteering their time without being rewarded financially.
Yes, yeah, maybe I was not clear in the beginning. So I'm also a volunteer in vTaiwan. I don't get pay from vTaiwan. All the people joining vTaiwan is out of interest and some kind of strange passion. But some people came to the platform because they have a urgent issue they want to solve. Maybe they're suffering from a certain public issue they want to solve, and they will come as a opinion contributor. Some people came because they want to have another way to do policies. So a lot of public servants came to vTaiwan and contribute here for free because they see this is a potential to create new systems. A lot of people actually are journalists from international civic tech communities. They come to see how this keep running. So also give us a lot of feedbacks and help to get our names outside. Another way I can put it is maybe vTaiwan got more famous in other countries than in Taiwan, and it actually got famous in other countries first, and then that came back to Taiwan as a news. And then local citizens in Taiwan didn't know from the beginning, but they read some English news about vTaiwan and started to participate in this platform. And that comes to us also. Our second generation, younger generation, are better in English, and they do read more English news than Mandarin news to get a sense of the world. So when they heard about the story of vTaiwan GovZero in English, they all got very interested in contributing, even without any
reward.
Yeah, economic reward. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that this is a model that can be translated into other countries? I assume you do.
Yes.
But
yeah.
the realities are probably different.
Yeah.
What you describe is absolutely incredible, looked from the skeptical eyes of the Western world. But I hope that the skeptics like myself are wrong. And I hope
No, I wouldn't say. I think it's a very, very good critic. I really appreciate this honesty. Oftentimes, I forgot about this is like all volunteer work. And when I talk to people, I probably didn't mention enough. But like myself, I have a job. I also do vTaiwan. This is I'm kind of identifying this as my hobby instead of my work. And ideally, I want this to be replicable to other countries because I think this is the way, because all the citizens are also a species as us. So if there's a platform, citizens can do micro interactions or microscope interactions just per their free time, then that would be amazing and more sustainable model than participating through voting or through really running elections. That would be too costly. So I really appreciate your criticism. I really hope that platform in your context can work also.
Perhaps the people who are running this show can comment about what is happening in their respective countries compared with what's going on in Taiwan. We know that going through COVID-19, different countries have done things differently, and the results are obvious to everyone, especially those of us who live, for example, in the United States. So that is an indication about the trouble that people may find trying to adapt your incredibly well-run project in their respective countries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Any comments?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, we were sort of, when we were first started discussing vTaiwan and that we would love to do something along those lines and develop some project, we were first of thinking in terms of course, in the scale of a country, like in our case, Croatia or whatever, if we were develop. Then we sort of started to scale down to a single institution in some, and from our perspective, this seemed like a good place to start, sort of as a testing phase, just to see how the model itself works. So it's a good scale to see how, just to test the model for us to get the feel of the model. But on the other hand, it's also sort of this low participation, some kind of low democratic spirit, so to speak. I mean, some kind of some put distrust and some lack of motivation for participation is something that's quite strong in Croatia to begin with, but also, I mean, if you look at some research across Europe as well. So, I mean, some countries might be a bit different in this respect, but actually the majority has this sort of, like a very small sort of participatory motivation. So, in this sense, in order to find some ways how to use the model without immediately going to the country, we decided that maybe it would be best to think of policy-making institutions themselves. I mean, whether it's, in our case, it's university as a test site, but just if you think about the institutions that make policy, they themselves sort of don't actually include all of the people that are, working in them or that are in some way sort of strongly connected to them. Within their decision making. I mean, their decision making as well tends to be very sort of closed off, top down, at times, in many times sort of resulting from some more or less like a random set of events or political pressures or whatever. So in this sense, our thinking was that even if we were to scale really to down to a single institution, that this would itself provide a sort of some kind of enhancement to decision making. You know, it wouldn't be as well, it wouldn't be such a really unbelievable and inspiring project as Taiwan has proved itself to be. I mean, in terms of being a sort of including all the citizens in the sort of policy developing process. But even at the scale of a single institution, it could already have some interesting, you know, results with regards to the decision-making process, which is mostly like very, not only that it's not transparent in the sense that the data and materials are not readily available for people and so forth, but also some institutional decision-making procedures are not even, there is no, strictly speaking, a procedure, you know, with some things. Some things are just sort of results of some spontaneous, you know, flow of events that puts somebody at some position, and then these people make decisions. I mean, when it comes to institutions, some institutions there is really no actually procedures as such, and this would already, to sort of put it in this terms of a system of decision making which involves, which sort of open sources the policy making process, is something that we believe would already sort of change the way that decisions are made and problems are solved. So this is our sort of, you know, I don't know, our hope.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I'm also personally very interested in ways to facilitate decision making. I think this is something like probably I want to explore the most in my lifetime. It's kind of like a personal passion also. Yeah, and the more I see vTaiwan, or I heard from other countries, the more I see the shared need of opening up the process. And a lot of tension is around authorities making decisions, one person taking control, although this person is probably not fully understanding the whole context, which is understandable, and then it becomes quite helpless, but no other ways out for current status. Yeah, in Taiwan, we have this kind of mental concept called a person and a whole. So it's like a person and a task, but a task can be done, a whole can be occupied by any person. So if, for example, there's a bird, right? If this is a person, like a contributor in a community, and if this is a whole, right? So in vTaiwan, we create a lot of holes, so the person can jump into it and say, I'm gonna be on this task. So we call this Ren is person and Ken is a whole. Ren-Ken mechanism. And then we create some memes, like you can push, like if I'm another person, I have Legos. Sorry, I have Legos. So I push another person to the hole. So meaning I'm not gonna do it, but you do it. So push person to the hole, or a person in the hole can decide to jump out from the hole. It's okay, because maybe you get busy, so you can jump out. And then you can both jump into the hole, and the hole become bigger. When the hole becomes bigger, it becomes something like vTaiwan. We have around 20 people now in the hole. But in the beginning, probably 2 people, and then you try to attract more people. But the thing about this is very organic. The holes they're always there to be jumped. Although the hole can be empty when there's no one inside for a long time, when maybe people start to forget about the task over there. But it can be as big as a certain process, a stage like committee meeting, or a stage like problem identification. But it can be as small as something like taking notes for the meeting, taking photographies, or bringing pizza to the conference room. So something a small step. But as long as the whole is concrete, defined over there, then people know they have to, someone has to do it. And you can sense the vibe of the community by seeing how many holes are defined and how many holes are occupied already, to see how much the vibe, the activeness of the community is. So that's how our kind of widespread kind of concept always in our head. We're probably all brainwashed by this very mysterious concept. Every time I go to vTaiwan, in my own understanding, I'm probably maybe very middle contributor, like between inactive and active. So I always see the hole I'm occupying as talking about the story of vTaiwan to other people. From time to time, I participate in the weekly hackathons. And when I participate, I try to take notes, and I try to write articles about vTaiwan so people can know about the story more. But there are also other holes, other tasks that I don't participate yet. So things like maintaining the website, or like, because I'm not in Taiwan now, so people have to buy food there, borrow the space, borrow rooms. Some of the recent task over there is to buy the meeting conference microphone, and then someone has to own the task. Then I cannot. I say I can contribute the money, but I cannot go do the buying. So people own different parts of all the tasks. Yeah, and then because this is an open platform, so you can see a lot of different people come to us, and you can also sense they have probably evil or kind motivations, but it's okay. Like if what I see is when people come in with evil motivation, then because it's not a majority meeting, so we don't vote for majority opinion. We vote for diversity opinion. More diversity, the better. When people agree with rough consensus, it's okay. But when people come with evil intentions, then it's also hard for them to get, for example, resources or other people's intentions to back up their ideas. So that kind of intention will just die down naturally or fade out naturally. So what I see a lot of times is, for example, sometimes there are some politicians, just name maybe example, politician coming, maybe an MP coming and want to use the people's will from vTaiwan to kind of back up for a certain bill. Then because he doesn't have that much time to participate in vTaiwan, then his intention died down after a few weeks. He doesn't have time to come in every week to advocate about that certain bill, and of course it's not gonna last. So in another way, our process is very slow, very zen. It just goes on its natural pace. It's not nothing's really in a rush. If it's in a rush, it's probably someone really feeling urgent about changing a certain regulation. So yeah, what I'm saying is also like, maybe it's worth defining what kind of topics you wish to discuss around your platform. Like in Taiwan, we decide over time, we decided that our topics should be something agreed by both the government and by the citizens' sides. So there's no way that one citizen proposes a certain idea without government's commitment can launch in our platform. So it has to be both committed, because otherwise it's too costly to curate a case, and then in the end it doesn't get buy-ins from the government. Another limitation we have is it's always digital matters, because we know our platform is very digital heavy, so we don't want anyone feel left out if they don't know how to use internet, for example. So all the regulations we reform is all digital matters. So you can see online bullying is about online bullying. You can see selling liquors online is about selling alcohol online. and what the regulation should change when things got different. Yeah, but it's yeah. Carlos, you have to unmute.
Yes.
I was saying that, in fact, you define an intelligent society.
How do I define intelligent society?
No, you defined it by your description.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. There's still some, generation gaps. What I can see, it's our challenge is to kind of jump between generations. I wish recently my parents, they're also participating on public matters, and I got really moved by seeing that. Usually they see a lot of news from, especially China, give a lot of misinformation and read those news. And now we built chatbots to tell them how to differentiate misinformation and facts. And they become a really useful tool for them to see, oh, I saw this news, but this news is also on this chatbot. That means this news is information. Then I don't want to believe this news. So recently we got like more and more attention from our parents' generation, and then they started understanding what we're doing. And I think that's very touching moment for me. Okay, I'm just reading from the chat.
Mm-hmm. Esther is still with us, so thank you very much for this opportunity for your knowledge, for sharing your time and your knowledge with us, and for this opportunity to learn more. Hello, Esther, nice to meet you.
Hello, how are you?
Hi. Would you like to ask a question? We should slowly wrap it up, but please.
Can you see me now?
Not yet, but
now? No.
No.
Oh, no?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, no.
Hi. How are you? No, I was listening with great interest. I'm just a little bit worried, although I have to say that I'm naturally pessimistic about humans, so don't take it too hard. I don't know how it's going to work here. I think it's worth to try, especially after the insightful insights from Taiwan. I don't know, what do you think? I think we are too individualistic yet. All our system of thought is based on the Enlightenment, on the individual merits, what we can achieve individually. It's gonna be very difficult, very difficult. Maybe it's worth to try it's good in university, but even more, maybe at younger age, if we are really going to change society for a more intelligent society or really intelligent society, I think we need to begin educating our children. And this is going to imply that we need to educate the parents of the children as well. Our society, from my point of view, is highly unfunctional in many aspects. For example, the way we treat older generations is very complicated. It's not about only bringing a platform and letting people to have a voice in that platform. We need a more substantial change, although the platform can do really good, but there is a kind of field work that needs to be done, and with examples, maybe pilot laboratories, pilot experiments that could start with the small communities, not necessarily academic, but involving the whole community. Maybe start with a little village, I don't know, and with a school, with a community center. I would be, my feeling is that it would work better in this vein if it's a kind of a whole action. You correct me. This is what I have to say.
Thank you. No, I agree. I mean, I think that this is right on the track. That, as I was saying before, the idea was first to start with the country, then we thought, but this is really sort of not really possible. We need to scale it down and to focus very much on this certain community or a certain institution and so forth. So I think I completely agree on this point. I mean, if you had a sort of a village or a smaller community in this sense, or I don't know, a city, part of a city or something like that, like a neighborhood and so forth.
Yeah.
I think that it could work. And I find your comment about starting earlier in the educational process very, very interesting. I think that it would be sort of very interesting to develop sort of vTaiwan for kids. I mean, this idea of having it like in elementary school already, having some, tests to actually involve kids or whatever in this participation, in deliberation with each other, in making some problem solving together, in finding their differences and developing, working with those differences in some opinions and so forth. I think that this would be like also a very interesting sort of test site for this type of a procedure. Thank you.
Thank you to you.
Thank you very much to everybody, and especially, of course, to Shu for your time and for your
my pleasure. Thank you.
Knowledge and
really good to be here.
Yeah, it was really good to have you, and thank you very much for sharing with us all this knowledge. And we would most certainly sort of also continue, stay in contact just to get you some information on how the project is going and so on. And hopefully we'll have the chance to speak again. And thank you very much. That's exactly. We will always leave a little, white space, correct?
Yeah. Let me just invite you to our island. It's not as large as Taiwan, but it's a tiny island in Adriatic Sea, where we are having now premises where we wish to build up a community and research and investigation community, and especially young community. So do consider it if you're visiting Europe. Do consider to visit us as well.
Yeah, I will do that.
Thank you.
I'll contact you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, guys. Bye. Take care.
Sorry. Just for those who are continuing with us on the archipelagos of the living, you can join us at 2:30. I exchanged with Elvira, and she's waiting for us at 2:30. Thank you. Thank you.